Hi everyone, welcome to Bring the Heat by the Corning Museum of Glass Hot Glass team. My name is Michael Beahm, and today I'll be making a fun blown glass sculpture. This piece starts like many other pieces that we make any blown glass object by starting a bubble, and this is going to get a color overlay. So this is a water blue that's going on over the clear bubble. You'll notice that I really missed center when I put the color on. The goal is that you hit it right in the tip of the bubble, and then you can evenly work the color around the bubble. So I had to do a little bit of adjusting to get that fixed. If you push color off to one side, when you begin inflating, if you have varied thickness, then you can start to have your bubble blow out unevenly. So luckily I was able to sort that out, no problem, and get the color worked down around the clear. This color that I'm using is a water blue, so it is going to be blue, but for most of this process it will look green simply because it's so hot. If you're a glassmaker, this water blue, it's R87, that's the color code. So all of the colors have these fun, almost like Crayola crayon names: water blue, canary yellow, avocado green, but they also have color codes, which makes it easy for glassmakers internationally to order those colors. After gathering all the glass that I need, this piece is going to be fairly tall, so I do a lot of stretching and inflating both at the same time. I get a jack line in, that's the constriction just off the end of the pipe that will become the top of this piece later on. More heat, more stretching, and I'm trying to inflate specific areas near the pipe first, so that then when I stretch, it's going to be thin towards the top of this vessel as well. Now, this is a blown sculpture, but I still approach this much like I would for most of my blown glass objects, because it does start primarily as a vase first, and then the sculptural elements will come in later. At this point I have most of my shaping done, so I'm getting ready to add some glass onto the bottom for the foot. I cool the bottom first because I'm going to add this hot bit of material, and if the bottom of the vase is too warm, then I can start to sink in or distort the vessel shape that I have. So just compressed air on that cone tool, that allows me to cool that section down quickly, just like you might blow on soup. You can blow on your glass to cool it down as well. Katie's going to bring over this bit for the foot. Now this is also water blue, and I did a much better job this time of getting the glass centered on the bottom of the vase for the foot, much better than I did for the overlay, which is good because this is more critical that I have it centered. You really have one shot to get that on the bottom of the vessel where you want it. I also put a clear punty patch, as we call it, on the bottom of that foot. That punty patch is just a little bit of clear so that I don't have a color to color connection once this is on the punty, or a color to clear connection rather. Sometimes the clear on the surface of a foot can peel away from a clear punty, so I put the clear on the bottom of the foot just to make sure I have a strong connection that's going to support this vessel for the duration of the piece, including while I'm putting all these additions on the top of the vessel for the sculptural elements. We break the glass off of the blowpipe. A little bit of water on that constriction creates thermal stress, creates shock, and then a little tap of the pipe, the piece breaks right off. You can see that's still pretty warm at that punty, moving a little bit. That is really what you want. If you let that get too cold when you go to break it, the glass can fall off of the punty if you're not careful. Now, even though I did make this fairly thin at the top, I still remove some of the thicker excess glass, and then I'm also going to go in and do what we call a pitcher cut. So I'm cutting intentionally a high side and a low side for this vessel. I'm also going to put a lip wrap right around the top of that, and this is going to be important for the design of the piece that I'm making. You'll see how it comes into play in just a moment. But that's a big thick wrap, also water blue, wound right around the top. And then I need to make sure that it's connected and really sealed well around the edge of the vessel. On occasion you'll get little gaps where it just doesn't quite touch, and then you can have essentially just these little gaps that you don't want. This is where the sculptural elements come in. We'll start to add those. So I'm using our hot torch. That hot torch is natural gas and oxygen. and it's running about 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So I heat specifically where I want to add the eyeballs, so that's what I'm going to put on now. Now this vase in general is pretty inspired by a mid-century modern swung vase. So that's a vase that you would make by basically getting the top of the vessel hot and swinging it, and you get an organic lip on the top of the vessel like this. So that's the inspiration for the form, but the inspiration for the sculpture is a Muppet. These are based on the Martians, or the Yip Yips as they're often called, from Sesame Street. So this is something that's just silly and fun, which is really what I love making. I love glass blowing. I would say that I'm primarily a vessel maker, and this is fun because it gets to combine my desire and love for vessel making with also my desire for silliness and goofing around. So this becomes a pretty fun, silly thing once you put those eyeballs on. You can also see how the lip wrap creates the mouth of the character. Now I put these antennae on as well, and I put these on much like I put on a handle. So a hot bit of glass is added, and you can see how wiggly that glass is once we attach it. There are 2 antennae, so we'll put this on just like the first one. As I put these on, I do a little crimp with the diamond shears. And then as I stretch further, it pulls to a slightly nicer taper. Now, I let this hang towards the ground first so that it can start to cool down a little bit. I gauge the temperature. Then I grab this with the diamond shears and I start to bend it around. Typically, I'll try to bend in the opposite direction of where I really want it to end up first, and that helps give me a natural curve. But there is a lot of wrangling in this move. And then I'm also just trying to allow gravity to freeze this into place and let gravity do some of the work for me. Now a little bit of compressed air before Chris jumps in and starts taking heats. These are really the hardest heats of the process, so it's nice that he was doing this for me. I could stay at the bench and focused on the next details. But those hot antennae, they do really move around a lot more than the rest of the vessel. So this becomes a managing game. I've got to make sure that those antennae don't get too hot, that they move around where I don't want them, but I also have to torch the punty to make sure that it stays hot enough as well. If that gets too cold, the piece could fall off before I want it to. I also pre-made these parts. These are the little balls on the end of the antenna, and these are going to be bright yellow. Again, they just don't look true to their nature because of the extreme heat. So at the moment, they look more orange, but they will be a bright yellow. So I torched the tips of these antennae, just like I would for the positioning of the eyeballs, so that I have one really hot spot that I can make that connection. Now those tongs that I was using for the eyeballs and the antenna, I believe those are Jason Johnson tongs, and they are made specifically for grabbing sculptural elements like this, and they're really great for shaping. I also wanted to make sure that when I was heating up the top of the vessel before I put the eyes on, I also let that bend a little bit. I let the body of the vessel bend, and that gives this more attitude. It looks like it has a little bit more playfulness and liveliness. So that little bit of curve gives this some life. Now this part here was really more for the glassmakers. During this Bring the Heat series, I was the last glassmaker to go. And everybody else made a floral-inspired piece, so everything was very flowery. So I figured that maybe I should put a flower on this piece for the theme of our Bring the Heat series. But I never actually intended to put the flower on. It was all just for show. So I threw the flower in the bucket. That glass will get recycled. We'll send it off to a local aggregate company. They'll grind it up and mix it into concrete, and it'll be reused. It was also a pretty ugly flower, so I wouldn't actually want to ruin this adorable piece with it. At this point, we're all done with the vessel, so a couple drops of water will create thermal stress, and then all it takes is a little tap with our wooden paddle, and it breaks right off. It was a good punty by Katie. We do fire polish the pieces. This eliminates a lot of extra time and extra work grinding and polishing the bottoms of our vessels, and then away it goes into the annealing oven. We had a good crowd for this Bring the Heat demonstration, which makes it a lot more fun to have a lot of energy in the crowd, and high fives for the team. Actually, I gave Katie a low five. We're bringing low fives back. Thanks for watching this Bring the Heat breakdown with Michael Beahm. If you want to see more, the full demo of this piece can be found on our YouTube channel.